Welcome to Jazz Rocks with Adam. If you're just starting out with jazz, anyone knows that it can seem daunting. That's why I'm going to help you learn 3 things that will set you up for learning jazz.
You jank.
Hey, I thought I would reach out to my friend Tim Lerch and ask him what his advice is on beginners learning jazz. And he had some great things to say. I hope you stick around and listen to it. We talked for about 8 or 9 minutes, so this is going to be before we actually get into listen. But trust me, it's going to be really good. What are 2 or 3 pieces of advice you would give to a person who wants to start getting into jazz? Maybe they've been playing for a few years but know little about jazz.
Okay. First piece of advice is listen to jazz as much as you can. Jazz is a big word, and it doesn't mean the same thing to everybody. And I don't believe that you need to, these days, I may have thought this at one time because it's what I was doing. I don't believe you take your entry point, whatever it might be, and then you have an obligation to sort of work your way back to Louis Armstrong and then come forward to understand better. You know what I mean? And then go forward. So like if you really like Dave Brubeck and all of a sudden, you think you're supposed to go all the way back and to Bix Beiderbecke or all the way forward to Bitch's Brew. But you have to find out what you love. You have to find out what you love and what you love about it so that you can find other things that are like it as well. These days, YouTube is great because you can sample all kinds of things, make playlists and study lists and all sorts of stuff like that. Yeah. Listen to a lot of jazz, particularly if you can discover what eras or varieties of jazz you like. Really listen to that. And if one bit of research I think is very, very profoundly important is if you're listening to jazz and it's based on standard songs, learn those standard songs as songs. Listen to their original recordings in the show that they come from or whatever it might be. But as soon as your mind starts saying, wow, I'm curious, then follow your curiosity as well. So it's just, for me, it's wide open. That's my sort of perhaps more slightly mature perspective on it, is because it's so deep and so wide, you can get lost in it if you don't find a focal point.
Like you said, it's so vast. It's a huge ocean. But if you want to go swimming, you got to dip your foot in somewhere in that.
You got to get in there.
Yeah.
And you might get in there and get back out again, and then say, well, that was interesting, but gosh, I heard this other thing. You might have to dabble for a while, but then there's that other business of like, if you want to get to the clear water, you have to dig a deep well, and you got to find your own voice. And if you're only searching outside of yourself, for things to affiliate with, you're less likely to find your own voice. If you're only imitating, you're less likely to find your own voice, although we all have to imitate a little bit. But you have to love the thing. You can't be conflicted, or it doesn't work so well if you're conflicted. Like if you really want to play, like Eddie Van Halen, then get into a band that plays that music. Don't be getting into some sort of country band wishing you were playing in Eddie Van Halen, right? That's the first thing. Listen. Find what you love and go after it with a passion. Now, as far as learning, learn by ear as much as you can from as early as you can. And then whatever you learn in an academic fashion, about scales or modes or chord construction or rhythms or whatever, that you learn the academic aspect, that will be learned in the context of what you've already learned by using your ear.
Right.
You can't reverse those two things very easily. Like okay, I'm only going to do the intellectual. I'm going to do what I'm told. I'm going to read a lot of books, and I'm going to take a lot of lessons. I'm never going to really pursue it myself by ear. And then I'll get to that later. I don't think you'll ever get to it if
Right.
you're either going to get confused and drop it, or you're going to have a very intellectualized approach that isn't connected to, the way music flows inside of your being.
Right.
Although,
Because I know with my students, I try to say, especially jazz and blues, it's a conversational thing. It's just like you're talking and you're having a conversation with the other musicians. So I say to them, you don't think too hard about everything you say. That's why we practice, in order to have those things just come out naturally. Yeah.
I also think jazz and blues particularly, but other kinds of music too, the recordings that we have are actually just snapshots of the moment that the music was happening. But rock music and pop music was more manufactured, and they might spend weeks and months perfecting a certain presentation, like the famous story of Richie Valens, did 37 takes of La Bamba before they got the one that became the hit, because either the band kept fucking up or whatever it was. Jazz isn't really like that. Jazz is more like a snapshot, and you have to learn how to be in that kind of mindset, because it doesn't have a sense of like perfection. It has more of a sense of adventure and more of a sense of a journey that we're all undergoing. But I just think everybody has to try and do it on their own a little bit as well. We're all kind of self-taught when it comes down to it.
I totally agree about that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're self-taught and we play by ear. That's jazz.
Mm-hmm.
And those two components are really important for it to really remain a unique art form. I think in some ways, the fact that the musicians are self-taught and we play by ear. No matter how well we read, or no matter how much theory we understand, we're still self-taught and we still play by ear.
Right. Yeah.
Ultimately,
It is music after all.
Yeah.
You have to hear it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Play with people who are better than you, and don't be full of yourself ever if you can stand it. Really always have a kind of, develop a sense of generosity of spirit, develop a sense of curiosity, develop a sense of mentorship, develop a humility about the music, because the music's going to kick your ass. You have to really develop the right attitude, because if you crumble the first time you get your feelings hurt, or the first time you can't make it on the tempo that the leader called, or if you get up and you're shaking in your boots at your first jam session and you don't play the most glorious thing and everybody pats you on the back and you get a little trophy, you gotta set yourself up for not falling for those problems. And so you gotta deal with it from the perspective of it's like this adventure, this lifelong adventure. It's an improvised life, and the music and the life come together in a way that really is true improvisation. And if we're going to be improvisers on the bandstand, we better learn how to improvise in the practice room. I don't mean improvise notes and chords, but I mean, what are you going to practice today? Be creative in how you learn. Be creative in how you go for trying to find gigs. Your creativity isn't just limited to what you play over a chord progression. Your creativity is totally throughout your life. It must be, or you'll end up sitting in your mom's basement and very, very unhappy.
When you start to get a little more serious about music, like I'm assuming you are if you're watching this, you begin to realize it's all about chipping away at different areas until the next thing you know, you have a lot of stuff under your belt that you couldn't do before. It's an accumulative thing. The future is looking back at the past. You can't fully know what you've accomplished until you realize what you couldn't do before but can now. 3 months from now, you'll know more than you do today. A year from now, even more. Learning your fretboard is important. If you need to play a B flat note or a B flat chord and you don't know where a B flat is, you're in trouble. Where is a B flat on your guitar neck?
What? What? Say what again?
I have an even more thorough video on the topic of learning your fretboard. I'll be sure to leave the link below. A good place to start is simply start with naming the natural notes up and down all your strings. Both directions is important. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. Then name the sharps and flats. That's the notes between the natural notes. All the sharps can also be considered a flat. Just in case, for those that might not know, this note between F and G here can be called both F sharp or G flat. And it works the same for any of the natural notes that seem to have an empty fret space between them. Practicing with a metronome is a really good idea because it forces you to play and name out loud the note on the click. G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G, G flat, F, E, E flat, D, D flat, C, B, B flat, A flat, G. The faster you can do this process, you know the better you're getting at it. Of course, you'll likely have to start off slowly, but if you take 5 to 10 minutes to do this one exercise with a relatively short time, say 1 to 2 months, you'll be so much faster at it. Remember, being able to play anything fast is done by speeding up the thinking process in your mind until you do whatever seemingly without thinking. Mind first, hands will follow. Later on, you can practice scales this way too. It's a really good idea to keep a practice journal like this one, where you can keep track of your progress. You can log your tempos so you don't forget where you last left off. Write out your goals and work towards them. Witness your progress on paper, literally. Now, make sure you do this on all 6 strings, not just 2, unless you plan on being a country bass player.
Oh, I can't believe he just said that. Did he just really say that?
There will be a starter PDF below for free, or get the extensive full lesson at my Patreon page, where I get into more detail. You can have access to all of my 30+ lessons for as little as $3 a month. The link is below. If you're not interested in a monthly membership, you can download the full lesson for $3. I'll leave the link for that as well. Learning how to spell out any chord is important because in jazz, we focus heavily on the notes that make each chord, the harmony. These are commonly referred to as chord tones. This topic is related to the first because you need to know where the notes are in order to play the chord tones. In jazz, we typically use 4-note chords as a minimum. These are the basic 3-note triads, root 3-5, plus the 6th or the 7th added for that 4th note. Even though we go further and add 9ths, 11s, and 13s, starting off with these 4-note chords is a great place to start. We're going to approach this just like we did naming notes, by staying on one string at a time. I'm going to play the 5th string, and I'm going to outline a C7 chord. And the notes for a C7 chord are C, E, G, B flat. I'm going to start on the lowest possible note, so that's on this string, it's B flat. And I'm going to go B flat, C, E flat, G, B flat, C. Now, if you want to reduce it to only playing up to the 12th or 15th fret or so, that's totally fine for now. But don't forget to cover as much of your guitar as possible. Coming back down, C, B flat, G, E, C, B flat. And then you can move to the next string. Lowest note, E, E, G, B flat, C, E, C, B flat, G, E. Next string, I can play open. G, B flat, C, E, G, B flat. I think you get the idea. Later on, it's a fantastic thing to improvise on one string. So right there, I was thinking of blues. You can also jam along to a jam track. I have lots of blues jam tracks available on my channel. Just search them out. This one string approach is really good because you're learning both the string and learning to listen while making decisions of what notes to play. Because you're reducing all the many choices down to just one string, it relieves the feeling of overwhelm. Rhythm is so important in jazz. It's the foundation of the music. It's what makes everything bounce, everything groove. It's what attracts the listener's ear. I also have a great video that goes more in depth on this topic, and I encourage you to check it out. There's a great book that I highly recommend to all my students. It not only is great for feeling syncopated jazz rhythms, but it will help you with reading music as well if that's something you are interested in. I'll leave the link for you below. Again, it's a really good idea to practice with a metronome. Start first by clapping the rhythms. Next, play the rhythms on your guitar on an open string or just one note. Put on some classic jazz recordings and just play rhythms that you hear in your head or repeat rhythms that you hear in the recordings. Learning should be fun, especially if it's something you really want to do. Yeah. Focus on these 3 things for the next couple of months, and I promise you will have laid the groundwork for where you want to go next, which is make great music that you hear in your head without thinking too hard about it. If you would like to support this channel, consider buying a t-shirt like this one, or something at my store. It really helps keep things running here at Jazz Rocks. If that isn't something that you can do, then take a minute to click the like button and leave a comment. And if you think this video is good and want to share it on social media, YouTube takes notice and puts it in front of more good peeps just like you looking for good information. And check out these videos before you go. Over here.